Hey guys, Languagehacker here, and I'm going to talk to you about the 5 best decks so far in March of the Lich King, and also why they're the best decks. So let's talk through the first 5 we see here. Deathrattle Rogue, Blessed Priest, Miracle Rogue, Ramp Druid, and Questline. These aren't in a particular order. It can kind of vary based on rank and whatever, but I think these are the 5 strongest decks right now in the meta. Surprisingly, Rogue taking 2 spots with the great tool sets that they have available. Anyways, let's just randomly pick one here. Deathrattle Rogue has some explosive turns and some extremely sticky boards that can survive controlled board clears, and also just gets on the board really fast against slightly more aggressive decks by having big taunts and just bursting out combo decks with like invincible battle cries and just having very fast early boards. The way this deck works is sketchy information, Snowfall Graveyard. You run a bunch of death rattles. Sketchy information always draws Scourge Illusionist, which gives you a discounted copy of other death rattles in your deck, which is very useful because then you have, 1 mana 4/4 Burning Blade Acolytes, which are great. 1 mana 4/4, excellent. Especially when that 4/4 dies and summons a 5/8 or summons 2 5/8s, it's very, very powerful. Infectious School, a new card coming out with March of the Lich King. I mean, Scourge Illusionist is also a new card, but the idea behind this is that this, with Snowfall Graveyard, can propagate and make multiple ghouls, as long as you're aware, of how death rattles work. Sometimes board clears will clear the ghouls, so you have to work a little bit to play around that. Invincible kind of good as well. This also adds an extra undead thing for Invincible to buff. When you get multiple copies of Invincible, it's very, very strong. Because the Battle Cry is great, the Death Rattle is great, the Death Rattle triggers twice, etc. Basically, we're trying to cheat mana out and get really good Death Rattles with the Scourge Illusionist and doubling them with Snowfall Graveyard. Lieutenant can help with that as well, and Chandler can help you pop them. Very, very nice deck. A little high rolly, but hey, what deck isn't? Miracle Rogue, you guys have seen this deck. It's not really spicy or new or anything. It's just play a bunch of cards, make a couple big things with Graveyard or Draka, making a big weapon and trying to close out the game very, very quickly. Same thing, very explosive, can end the game very quickly. Not a lot of counterplay. Blessed Priest, very similar. You'll notice that a lot of these decks have very little counterplay and are very explosive. Quite explosive, turns 4 or 5-ish, you can go in, make a huge Raid Elemental buff board with Powered Fortitude, one of the Ascended, bunch of Serpent Wigs. Make a big board, your opponent can't deal with it, then you kill them next turn, either with Blesses or just having a couple of big idiots. This did get a bit of some support. Animate Dead is now playable, which means that you can save 1 mana on Radiant Elemental on the pop-off turns. You can just tempo out a Radiant Elemental on turn 2 if you need to. And then later on, when you want to do the big pop-off, you can just play Animate Dead. Instead of having to spend the 2 mana on the Radiant, you can save 1 mana on the pop-off turns. Ramp Druid, win rate doesn't look that great, but I do think it's one of the most powerful decks. This is Luna's list, Luna Love. It might not be the optimal list, but I think this is also what's on HS Replay. This was something that popped up pretty early in the expansion. Basically, Ramp is pretty busted. They did nerf Sire, so that's like, oh no, Sire. But Sire doesn't matter. It's still in there because it synergizes as well with Onyxia, Scale of Onyxia, Topiar, so it's still pretty good if you have it early on as a combo piece, and it helps if you get disrupted with your other big win condition, which is Astalor Bloodsworn and a Nubricon. Technically, you don't need a Nubricon for the combo if you have Guff and you ramp enough, but Bran, a Nubricon, 5-mana Astalor, then 2 8-mana Astalor is a nice little 64 damage wombo combo that can be done pretty early on, honestly, as long as you have the combo pieces. And otherwise, the deck is just Ramp Druid with payoff, armor gain, removal. It gains some survivability with some of the armor package. It just seems, with ramp draws, this deck is basically unbeatable. Even if you get disrupted, let's say your Sire gets eaten, or Theotard, or Patchwork, or whatever, or your Astalor gets the same thing, one or the other, you'll have the other one. Also, Moonlit Guidance can help play around that by having extra copies, and this deck is just very, very strong. Susceptible to dying, though. Aggro can run this over, but Aggro isn't very playable because of Renathal, 40 health. Traditional aggro decks don't really exist right now, and because of that, Ramp Druid thrives quite nicely. Questline. This is a slightly newer one. It hasn't popped up at the start of the expansion, but it's popped up a bit more recently, a few days before this video is going live. The idea is you run the quest in Demon Hunter to not necessarily get the quest completion, where you have the 5-mana 7/7, because by that point you've already drawn most of your deck. That can still be relevant in some games, but the initial discounts from this is very, very strong. The first and second steps do discount cards that you've drawn, which is very, very useful. So for the 1 mana you pay on turn 1, which you're not doing much on turn 1 anyways, you get a bunch of mana discounts for a combo deck where you're trying to draw your deck anyways. So In combo deck, you want to draw your deck. Cool. Slap in this card, and now the cards you're drawing are also discounted, which is excellent. Not just from the quest, but also from a Relic of Dimensions. The Relic package is in here as well outside of Zymox, because Zymox doesn't actually do any face damage. Granted, this can summon Relic of Phantasms to improve your board, but the idea behind this is spell damage minions, and then Fel Barrage and Unleash Fel. Unleash Fel with spell damage, turns and lifesteal is pretty good at dealing with aggro, for any aggro that exists. It makes you very healthy, survivable, and it can go face. So the idea is cycle through your deck, play burn cards when it's good, hopefully progress some relics. You have a relics of extinction for removal as well. There's some Fury in here as well for some face damage that doubles up with Jace. And the idea later on is you have enough stuff discounted that you can go spell damage minions, clear the board with Unleash Fel, Fel Barrages go face, and hopefully if you have enough discounts, you can also play spell damage minions on the Jace turn, and then all the Jace spells that get recast will benefit from the spell damage on board. So because of that, very good at clearing boards, surviving, and then doing a bunch of damage with the spells. Mark of Scorn is another new card that was added. Draws cards. It draws a card, which is useful because it progresses the quest, and it can deal some damage as well, so it's technical removal. Very nice. Once you reach your critical mass of draw cards, the quest does become very good and very consistent. So these are the 5 best decks right now. They all do what they're meant to do very consistently and very powerfully. There are very few bad matchups for all of these decks, which is why they're kind of tier 1. Too strong, and I think some of them should be nerfed, but there's differing opinions on that. People like having fun doing broken stuff. I personally am not a big proponent of having busted stuff to the point where it's frustrating to play against. But that's opinion-based. I'm not here to complain. I am here to complain. But I'm here to show you the 5 best decks. All these deck codes are below. Happy climbing. These can easily get you to Legend. I shouldn't say easily. They can get you to Legend. So if you are interested in any of these, deck codes below. Happy climbing. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.